Hi, welcome back to our channel. As our title suggests, we are now officially Canadian citizens. So in this video, we're going to go through the application process, how we applied for our citizenship, all the requirements, the documentation. We documented some steps along the way, so we want to share this with you all. If you're new to our channel, we are Trinidadians who migrated to Canada in the peak COVID, and we actually documented our process, our immigration process. We broke it up into three parts: the application, the actual move, and settling in Canada. If you have not yet viewed these videos, please, we'll link it in the description and feel free to share it. Right now in this video, we're going to show you all the application process. Okay, so in our first segment, we want to talk about who qualifies to apply for Canadian citizenship.
There are 6 different factors that you need to consider to determine your eligibility to apply for Canadian citizenship. So, the first criteria that you need to meet is that you must be a permanent resident of Canada in order to apply for your citizenship. The second criteria is that you must have lived in Canada for a period of 3 years out of the last 5 years. The third criteria, you must have filed taxes for 3 years out of the last 5 years. Fourth criteria is that you must prove your language skills in either English or French. The fifth criteria is that you must pass the Canadian citizenship test. And finally, the sixth criteria, you must take your oath of citizenship.
Alright, so because we are Canadian permanent residents, we were living in Canada from 2020 and we actually met these requirements. It was 3 years and a half after we've moved to Canada. We have been living in Canada and we did meet all these requirements. So we were eligible to apply, and that's why we started our application process.
Okay, so let's go through the criteria a little bit more in detail. So the first criteria is that you must be a permanent resident of Canada. Even if your permanent resident card has expired, you are still eligible to submit your application for citizenship. So we luckily arrived to Canada as permanent residents, so that already gave us an advantage to be able to apply for our citizenship a lot quicker. The second criteria, so you must have lived in Canada for a period of 3 years or 1,095 days over the past 5 years. You don't necessarily need to be a permanent resident who has lived for 3 out of the past 5 years. So if you came here on a student visa or a work visa or any other temporary visitor visa, your time spent in Canada is actually counted as half a day towards the requirement for your application. This was something we actually did not know until we were filling out the application process. So keep that in mind, it does count, but only as half a day. Whereas if you're a permanent resident, your time in Canada is counted as 1 full day.
And adding to that, we actually did not know at the time of application. We found out that when we were actually granted the permanent resident letter while we were in Trinidad, that time spent out of Canada actually counted half a day as contributing to the total of 1,095 days. So that's something we did not know. We thought that the time spent out of Canada would have been 0 days, but that's not the case. Once you have the status of permanent residence, even if you have not yet landed in Canada and actually got your card and documents and stuff, those days actually do count as half a day. So what we do suggest is, like, in contributing to the 1,095 days, don't apply as soon as the 1,095 days mark does hit. Wait a couple days after in terms of be safe.
Another important point regarding the length of stay in Canada. So you do have to meet the minimum 3 years out of the period of 5 years, but the 3 years doesn't have to be consecutive years. So for both of us, we traveled outside of Canada during our period here. So we had to subtract those days from our calculation. Even if you may not have spent consecutive 3 years in Canada, it doesn't matter. Once it's part of the overall past 5 years, it's included. The third criteria, so you must have filed taxes for a period of 3 years over the past 5 years. Again, this does not have to be consecutive. So you actually do not need to submit your notice of assessment. That information was already sent to the Canada Revenue Agency, or the CRA. So that information is already there. So when the application is being processed, all of that information is already being reviewed by your processing officer. Fourth criteria is that you must prove your language skills in either English or French. So on the government website, there's a list of different criteria for you to assess your skills. So one of the criteria happened to be IELTS. So we did IELTS when we were applying for a permanent residence application. So we had copies of our IELTS certificates. Even though it would have expired, it is still eligible to submit as part of the application. So luckily for us, we did not have to do a new English language test because we were able to submit those results from our IELTS that we did back in 2019.
That's a very good point, because when I was actually reviewing the application, I saw that the IELTS certificate had expired, and I got worried that I had to do IELTS again. But no, we actually submitted the IELTS certificate even though it was quote unquote invalid. But yeah, it was valid for the application.
The fifth criteria that you must meet is you must be able to pass your citizenship test. This test takes the form of 20 questions, and it comes in the form of multiple choice and true or false. It's done online ideally, but you can also do it in person. In order to obtain the pass rate, you must obtain 15 out of 20 questions correct. You do have up to 3 attempts to try the test as well. And usually when you have submitted your application, you will be notified when you will be eligible to sit your test, and you will be provided with a range of dates in order to sit your test.
Now, this test is based on your responsibilities as a Canadian citizen, the history of Canada, and getting to know your country. Now, you're applying to be a citizen of Canada. It is rightfully your responsibility to know about your country that you're moving into, the laws and the responsibilities of a Canadian citizen. So for us, moving from Trinidad and migrating to Canada, we didn't know much about Canada and the legal system, the voting system. We didn't know much about it. We had an idea. So we actually made some small cue cards. I'm going to insert the clip right now, and this was the actual cue cards. The date right now is the 28th of November 2023. I don't know when we were watching this, but we're studying very intensely for the exam this Sunday. I'm going to pass the citizenship exam. Let me see. French colonists began settling in 1604. Know that at the back of my head. They're also known as Acadians.
We got the information to study for the exam online through the government website. So the guide is free. It was approximately 100 plus pages. So it was a lot of information to digest. So we decided to, create some cue cards. We would quiz each other. And we looked to YouTube as well. So there were a lot of guides on YouTube, and we even downloaded some apps that were useful, that had a lot of the questions that we used to prepare.
Now, it's us preparing for this exam together. So it's nice to have a companion with you. We are on the same level. We were like quizzing each other during our drives on the weekends, doing errands. I was asking her questions. We really created a fun experience out of this preparation for the exam. You have to get 15 questions right out of 20. It was fairly straightforward. You could do it on your own accord. So we had the comfort of doing it at home. It probably took like 10-15 minutes. It wasn't that difficult. But right after you get your results, and you don't have to upload it to your application, it was actually attached through the portal itself. So it was pretty straightforward. But what I do suggest is that you do prepare and you do study intensively for this exam. Ensure that you're properly prepared. On YouTube, there's actually a lot of videos, maybe 600 questions in one video, that they go through the different questions, they show you the answers, and they explain to you why these the answers. Some of it was really, really foreign to me, but after referring to the book, we were really prepared for this exam. So right now, we actually look back at it and it's like, oh, that was a fun experience. So that was a really nice experience for us to sit this citizenship exam.
What I would suggest is to prepare well. So when we got the notice that we were about to sit our citizenship test, we actually had a period of exactly 2 weeks. And we prepared diligently, so we didn't want to rush to do the exam. So we actually took our time to study, and we actually ended up doing the tests up until a few days before the deadline date because we wanted to give ourselves enough time to study. When you go through the guidebook, you'll realize it's a lot of information to kind of digest, and you just don't know what can come in the exam. So it took some time for us to absorb the material, but my overall feeling after the exam is that it was pretty easy and anyone could pass. The last criteria is that you must take your oath of citizenship. This is the last stage for you to officially become a citizen. So typically this involves after you've submitted all of your documents, it's been processed and approved, you will receive notice that you are required to submit yourselves for the oath of citizenship. And then officially, only after that, you will now become a citizen.
Okay, so let's talk about our timelines.
So just to recap, so we arrived to Canada as permanent residents in August of 2020. So when we did the calculation, we actually would have been eligible to apply for our citizenship in September of 2023. Now, this is after we have already deducted the days that we spend outside of Canada. And as a rule of thumb, don't wait to obtain your exact 1,095 days to submit your application. Wait a couple of days or even a week or two in addition, just to avoid any errors, especially with your application. So we actually were eligible in the middle of September of 2023, but just to be safe, we decided to submit our application at the end of September just to give additional time, was recommended from the website. So the actual day that we submitted our citizenship application was September 30th, 2023. And this was a pretty unique day for us because this happened to be the exact day, 4 years to the day that we actually submitted our permanent resident application while we were in Trinidad.
How coincidental is that?
It was just kind of it wasn't planned, but it just happened to fall on the same day exactly 4 years ago. So in order to submit your application, you actually don't need to upload a lot of documents. You simply log on to the portal and you'll be asked to create an account and fill out the relevant fields with information.
And what we did is like for our permanent residency application, we actually saved all of the information in like one particular folder. So I actually had all the documents for my citizenship application, and it's very, very similar. You don't need additional documents. I'm actually using, like for instance, I'll give you an example, like the COC, the certificate of character certificate that I was issued in Trinidad. I actually uploaded that as part of my Canadian citizenship application, which was no longer valid, but it's really useful to have all this information readily available so that we could just upload the same documents for the Canadian citizenship application, because 90% is like the same documents you need to upload for your Canadian citizenship application. Okay, so in terms of the documents that were submitted, we needed to submit copies of our travel documents, passport, colored copies, birth certificates. You need to submit 2 pieces of photo identification, personal identification. In our case, it was our PR card and our passport. You could have submitted your driver's license, your health insurance card, senior citizen identification card, age minority card, foreign identity documents such as passports and government issued identifications were accepted, right? And because we fall within the category of 18 to 54 years old, we needed to submit the proof of language ability for English or French. In our case, it was English. We did IELTS while we were applying for PR, right? Additional documents that we needed to submit. We needed to submit 2 passport photos. There were specific requirements, size, dimensions, facial structures, no smiling, the colors, and all were done at our local Staples, right? So in terms of application fees, our application fee was $630 per adult, and it was done online. A very important point about this application is that because we are family, we apply together, and we don't suggest that you apply separately if you are family. So apply together so that the application gets processed together.
So part of the application that you need to complete is that you need to submit all the addresses that you would have lived at in Canada and as well outside of Canada over the past 5 year period.
Now, this is very important because as permanent residents coming to Canada for the first time, migrating, we migrated from Trinidad to Canada. We had some temporary addresses, so all of these addresses were tracked, and we needed to specify exact time frames where we lived at certain addresses. So it's very important to keep track of it. It is a requirement when filling out the citizenship application.
You must also list all of your work and study history, including English or French language training that you would have completed either inside of Canada or outside of Canada for the past 5 years. Even if you were unemployed, you were studying, you were retired, or you even volunteered, this information must be included on your application.
This is very important because as new immigrants come into Canada, we didn't have employment for a couple months, so we need this needs to be included in your application process.
So, as I mentioned, I subscribe to CanadaVisa.com. It gave a lot of information from other immigrants in terms of their processing times. And one of the other websites that I subscribed to was called myimitracker.com. This was also another website that I subscribed to during the time we submitted our permanent residency application. So, this website actually allows you to input your actual timelines, and you're able to view the statistics amongst other immigrants, and they share their information. So I checked on both of those forums every day to kind of get an idea of what the average processing time was. However, after we submitted our Canadian application, which was done on September 30th, 2023, at that point in time on the government's website, it said the average processing time for citizenship was approximately 18 months. So we officially submitted our application on September 30th, 2023. So from the time you submit your application, you will gain access to a portal where you can track your status. I checked the status every day, sometimes twice a day, to see if it was getting updated. It actually was not updated until November 2nd, 2023, and this is when we officially received the acknowledgement of receipt. The next update was completed on November 7th, 2023. At this point in time, our background verification had been completed. And then on November 9th, 2023, our account was updated to reflect that we would soon be receiving our citizenship test instructions. On November 15th, 2023, we officially received our letter indicating that we were scheduled to sit our citizenship test. Our citizenship test portal was open between November 17th, 2023 and December 7th, 2023. This meant we had 2 week period to complete our citizenship test. We completed our citizenship test on December 3rd, 2023, and the results were updated on our account on December 4th, 2023. From the time our results were updated on December 4th, it was basically a waiting game to see the status of our account, as a month and two had passed and there was no update. So at this point in time, what I decided to do, I subscribed to CanadaVisa.com. This was the same forum that I subscribed to when we had submitted our permanent residency application. And I highly suggest, if you are going through this process, to subscribe to this forum. It's a forum where you learn and gain information from other immigrants, where they share their experiences, whether they're going through citizenship, whether they're going through permanent residency, whether you're a student, or if you're even looking to come to Canada. It is a forum where you can gain knowledge from other persons who are going through the same thing. I went on this forum every day, sometimes twice a day, looking for updates specifically for Canada citizenship. And I also learned from a lot of other immigrants that there seem to be no updates for a while from the holidays. Finally, on February 15th, 2024, our account was finally updated to show that our physical presence, along with prohibitions and language skills, were updated. This was the last update that had to be met, and we were officially sent that we would be issued our oath of citizenship very soon. So, since February 15th, when we were notified that we were awaiting our oath, again, it was a waiting period because we didn't know when we were officially going to know when we were going to sit our oath. Finally, on March 14th, 2024, we finally received our oath letter, what we were waiting for so much time, and it had finally informed us that we were going to attend our citizenship ceremony on March 27th. The letter also indicated that our oath ceremony would be virtual. So when we were applying for our citizenship, you actually don't have an option whether you want to do the ceremony in person or virtually. We were both hoping that it would have been virtually so that we can be home and we can enjoy the moment and obviously record the footage to share with you. But we really did not know until we received the oath letter if in fact it was going to be virtual or in person. So as I mentioned, we both got very lucky that we were going to be able to take our oath virtually. But if you would like to take your oath in person, you can request it. You just need to inform the IRCC. And obviously, it may mean, however, that you may end up getting a different date. But we were both very happy that it was done virtually. If you missed the ceremony, we did record a video, so we'll link it below. Please check that out so you can see what happened on the day of the ceremony and the different stages. One thing to note before you are preparing to apply for your Canadian citizenship is to do some research. There are some countries that do not allow to have more than one type of citizenship. Luckily for us, Trinidad allows to have dual citizenship. And that was one of the reasons why we wanted to apply for Canadian citizenship. So that's something important to note as well.
All right, so right now we do have dual citizenship. We are Trinidadian Canadian citizens. Yeah, so we just want to take this time to say thank you so much for everyone for all the love and support. Thanks for watching the video. We got a lot of new subscribers recently. We just want to say thank you so much for joining us. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Stay tuned for the next video. We really appreciate your love and support, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.